Hello and welcome to the Panel by Panel podcast. My name is Kyle Diamond, and if you're new around here, the basic idea is that every single episode I take a well-known comic book story or a beloved one or one that is particularly relevant at the time or just one that I think is cool, and I do my best to explain it to my friend Aaron, who is a bit of a comic books newcomer. That being said, we are 5 episodes in already, so he does know quite a bit more than when we started. You can go check out those other episodes, by the way, on YouTube and Spotify. At the same time, go follow us on social medias. We're on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and obviously YouTube and Spotify at Parallel Panels. Please go subscribe or follow or whatever you want to do over there. That all really helps us out. So being 5 episodes in, we decided it was probably about time we do a big event one. I did sort of, I picked an event one that isn't too complicated. We're going to save those for a bit later on. I thought this one would be a good event one to start with, considering its relevance in the MCU at the moment. There's some fun parallels to kind of talk about. Parallels, who I did. To kind of talk about what they've done in the movies, what potentially they're building towards, and this comic is kind of the basis for a lot of it, even if it's not, a like-for-like interpretation of what they are doing in the movies and things like that. So without further ado, this is House of M, Episode 5. We'll be returning to DC on the next episode, but thank you anyway for checking us out.
Video about a sad clown, and he's like a jest. It's like the thumbnail is a guy in like a red jester costume, just slouched from his chair, really sad. And I keep looking at it, going, one day I want to learn about that sad clown. We might have to do it after this just to know what the sad clown's about. Because imagine if I even go on my YouTube now on my phone, I'll probably find that sad clown. It'll be a very upsetting time, but
I don't. What's the video called?
I don't know. It's just something about a sad clown. Like if I just look up sad clown. Oh, it's about clown. There it is. There.
The sad clown paradox.
Yeah, Jan Matejko Stanzik. Absolutely butchered that. But yeah, Stanzik or the sad clown paradox. And I don't know why that keeps coming up, to be honest. And then there's also a guy called Sad Clown who does cover songs.
He's just covering all the small things. What? I'm so confused.
He was on Britain's Got Talent as well 5 years ago.
I feel like I saw that.
He did a sad clown for Mad World as well.
So, the sad clown paradox is the contradictory association between comedy and mental disorders.
Holy.
So it says these comedic performers are characterized by feelings of deprivation and isolation in their early lives, where comedy evolves as a release for tension, removing feelings of suppressed physical rage through a verbal outlet.
So like just comedians?
Yeah, I guess it's like, yeah, you know how like there's the whole thing of like all the best comedians had like a real messed up childhood or something like that. Like I guess it's that thing where it's like, then you learn to express yourself through comedy because you don't have anything else, and then that's the sad clown.
That's sad.
Yeah, but that video really would have bummed you out.
I'm really glad I didn't watch that then. Who stands it then?
I guess he's the guy who came up with the term, or he's a famous sad clown.
Famous sad clown.
Yeah, maybe.
What a sad time. Oh no, it's just a picture of the sad clown.
Oh, it's the painting.
Yeah, National Museum of Warsaw. Shout out to Poland.
Man, you're going to have to take a trip to Poland to go see the sad clown.
I think I'm alright. Poland must have something else.
I don't know, I mean, they got some other sad stuff.
Sausage? They got sausage.
There you go. It's not bad.
Sausage and the sad clown.
Well, that's like their whole tourist board summed up. Brilliant. So I gave you a choice last time. We were going to do a Spider-Man comic or the one that you picked. Do you remember what it was?
Bug, it was, you couldn't give me much.
No. It's definitely the worst clue that I've given, because it's a clue that if you don't know comics, you know, like, alright, I know that the young woman Jake thing was like, you know, it's a bit of a meme, but it's annoying because like you maybe could have figured out.
Well, your Batman one, where it's like a Batman comic, but it's not really Batman.
Yeah, but like this one, if you don't know the comic book, you would never be able to guess what it is from my clue. And if you do know the comic, you would instantly know it from my clue. So it was a bit of a rubbish clue.
Quick thing before we go into it. I was thinking of Ultimate Alliance because we mentioned it last time.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the big face?
I'm so confused.
He's the big face on little legs.
He flies around.
Yeah. MODOK.
He's gonna be in the next Ant-Man.
Is he?
And that comes out like next year.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm actually gonna have to watch that Ant-Man. I was gonna skip it, but if MODOK's in it,
yeah, because MODOK is like, he's an Avengers villain, but he is associated with like Ant-Man and Kang occasionally. So yeah, I think it's got both.
What does he do? Or is he just like the face of Bug?
So I don't know. He's purely like a robot. I think he just has like a living face.
Right.
So MODOK is machine only designed something killing.
Connect? Xbox Connect?
I'm sure
too far.
I'm sure it was machine organism designed only for killing, but then there should be an F, but MODOK doesn't sound as good.
MODOK does not sound
I think that's what it is. I think that's what it stands for.
Is Jim Carrey going to play him as well?
I think there was like rumours, but they haven't. They're not having an actor play him. I don't think. I think he's just going to be CG, like a CG face on a robot.
So I just looked up here. It's mental, mobile, or mechanized. Choose
They
one.
change it all the time. Is the issue.
Organism designed only for killing.
Yeah, they just cut the F out. I've never clicked in my head before that the reason they cut it out is because MODOK doesn't sound as good.
I mean, MODOK's still pretty dumb anyway. But
Yeah, it is dumb.
MODOK, yeah.
Yeah, MODOK, but I mean, you can tell it's a Stan Lee character. Like, he would always just go for names that like sound good, even if they're like dumb.
It sounds evil.
Yeah.
Like if your name was Carl MODOK, I don't know.
Carl MODOK.
must be Eastern European or something.
Yeah. Do you remember what you picked? Do you remember what the clue
I guess it was an Avengers.
Yeah, because I said it was an event, like a big event one.
Yeah, because the choice was the Spider-Man one where you say it's a little bit dark, but it's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Or this big event one, full balls to the wall, let's go event for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite good that it's like the 5th episode and it's an event, so I don't know if maybe we'll try and stagger it so we do a big event like every 5 issues, every 5 episodes or whatever, just to try and like spread them out, because we haven't done one until now, so I was like, I want to spread them out anyway, so maybe we'll do that.
See how this one goes. If this goes terribly, then we'll never do an event
Well, that's
again.
true. This event's fun though, because it's only 8 issues and it's not super complicated. Like, it gets kind of like stupid, but it doesn't get to the point where you have to know like a ton of stuff. Like it in fact, it's 8 issues and it probably should be like 6. Like, if anything, it's still too long. But some of the other ones are like, this could be cut in half and it would be way better. So this one's like a little bit too long, but still pretty straight to the point.
Yeah, if noticing by Marvel Comics at the moment, the ones we have done, the comics are really dumb. The film's kind of, I see why a lot of people prefer DC Comics to Marvel ones.
Well, that exact like sentiment when we do Marvel events. So a lot of them are written by the same guy who wrote this one, Brian Michael Bendis, who was like super important for Marvel at the time. This was 2005. Yeah. So like the 2000s, like him and Mark Millar, who did Old Man Logan, they were like super important for Marvel, and Bendis does a lot of like the big event stuff. So we are the clue I gave you, which sucked, was that it's like some sort of living like accommodation with a big letter. So we're doing House of M.
I wasn't gonna get that.
No. It sucked. But then, like, if you know comics, at least you would have been like, at least I know what they're doing.
I think I've heard of the House of M.
I'm sure you would have.
But yeah, no way.
So it's on the app, so you'll remember about doing that, and then you can do that because there's, like I said, there's 8 issues. So, and there's about 20-25 pages in each one. So before we talk about the actual comic, I said, when I was trying to tell you stuff about it, I said that it's like super relevant but also super not, and that it's like Old Man Logan where they take certain things and change it. House of M is kind of like the culmination of Scarlet Witch's story, which obviously in the MCU we've had like a ton of build up for Scarlet Witch, from like meeting her and then her stuff in Infinity War and Endgame, and then WandaVision and Doctor Strange 2. So it's like, it's relevant at the moment because it's important, and also it involves the X-Men, and we're getting to like the point in the MCU where we're going to get mutants soon, it seems.
Here's the big thing before we go into this. I see he's right there, and you know I hate him. Just, is Cyclops different in the comics? Just so everyone knows, I can't stand Cyclops. He's a douche.
The problem is like a lot of, like the movies, there are a lot of X-Men comics where people don't give him anything to do. So he's very like even though he's like kind of the leader, like obviously Wolverine is a way more interesting character, so it tends to be led by him. So when he has like stuff to do and they like dive into it a little bit more, then sure. But like considering it's like the movies, considering his place in the X-Men, he is like kind of just like a back character.
He has one of 6 Superman abilities. And you're meant to make me like the guy. Come on.
Yeah, but
he's probably got the worst one as well.
Oh, man.
X-ray vision is useful. Does he have, like, acid breath in the comics?
He has ice breath.
Ice breath. Yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty good. I mean, pretty helpful. But, nah, the laser vision's sick.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, Superman's is a lot better because he can just do whatever he wants. But, you know. So, yeah, it kind of like... House of M is kind of like the starting point for all of the Scarlet Witch stuff. And then they picked and... Like, you'll see as we go through it, there's like little things that they've done in the movies that are from this. I mean, they've kind of wrapped up the Scarlet Witch stuff now, I think, with Doctor Strange 2.
Well, yeah, that was the big... I remember when we watched it. Or no, we watched it separately, but the same thing we came to was... And it's been out for plenty of time. It's on Disney Plus, so...
Yeah.
Please watch it. Please watch it.
I mean, I feel like there's not a ton of stuff that we could spoil that wasn't in the trailer anyway.
The big thing is the whole thing planting on her, because she destroys the temple.
Yeah.
And so I think she's dead, but you've got other things. Other things? Other thinking.
I don't know what they're going to do with Scarlet Witch now, but at least for where House of M ends, it ends in a very similar place, I guess, to where we're at in MCU, so that kind of works. But I suppose, what do you think in general of Scarlet Witch and what they've done in the movies?
I think it's quite... I mean, I haven't got a controversial view on Scarlet Witch at all.
No.
I think when she first came, it was like, oh, she's promising. Then the Avengers films, you're like, you're not really doing much.
Yeah.
Exact same as Vision. I've got no feelings towards you. You guys have cool powers.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do with it? And then WandaVision absolutely 180'd me, where I was like, okay,
yep.
all right, yeah. Wanda's cool now, and then, yeah, Doctor Strange 2. I'm a Wanda fan until the whole... Well, she might not be there anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they've done it really, really well. I mean, to be fair, I think it's like they've done it fairly well, and then WandaVision, and then everything that follows WandaVision is so much better because of WandaVision. So I think they just knocked that out of the park. But so this takes place shortly before Civil War. I think Civil War was 2007, maybe. So a couple of years. And it comes right after a big event called Avengers Disassembled, which we will do. So, like, spoilers for Avengers Disassembled, but, you know, like, if we were going to do everything in continuity, like, we would be here, we would literally never get past, like, the 60s, so, like, you know, we just never get there. So, Avengers Disassembled is where Wanda goes crazy. That's like the turning point where like she's part of the Avengers and then she goes nuts, and it's the same reason that she goes nuts in the MCU. It's to do with her kids and how she wants a family with her and Vision and her kids. But like in WandaVision, obviously she can't have kids because Vision's a robot, and so she creates them, and like she's trying to protect that. She just wants that because like in Doctor Strange 2 she like goes to a multiverse, right, and she has the kids there because of what happened with WandaVision. She's like, I'm just gonna go. Well, and then they have to find her.
The thing with WandaVision is at that point Vision's dead.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So in Avengers Disassembled, it makes a little less sense because you could have kids with Vision, but they're not.
He can't have kids.
That's not gonna be 100% his.
Yeah.
You'll obviously use someone else's juice. And then you can still have kids and still have a family.
Vision dies in Avengers Disassembled.
Okay, there you go.
But because of like the whole, it's not like he dies right at the start and then they can't have kids. He dies way later in the story. Ant-Man also dies because of Wanda going crazy, and Hawkeye. Those are like the three big losses in Avengers Disassembled. So that's kind of like setting the scene so that when House of M starts, Wanda is fully like gone mental, and Magneto in comics is her dad. I don't know if you knew that.
What?
Did you not know that?
Okay.
So like in the movies, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are brother and sister, but in comics their dad is Magneto. So he brings them in to form the what are they called, the Brotherhood of something. The Brotherhood of Mutants or something, but it's like his like evil group of mutants to take on the X-Men, which he kind of forms in the movies, right? Like when he gets like Pyro and like then all the other useless people. Yeah.
Or is Toad's in that group?
Yeah, I guess like Toad, Sabretooth.
I love Toad.
Mystique, all those people. Originally he has the kids and then he brings them into like the mutant thing, and then like in Avengers they flip over to the side of the Avengers because Magneto's like horrible. So yeah, Magneto is their dad.
House of M now definitely makes sense.
Yeah. So Avengers Disassembled ends with Magneto taking Wanda and being like, let's get out of here. So they go to this place called Genosha. Genosha is a place that only exists in comic books. It's an island that Magneto like bartered for. And like he just wanted a safe place for mutants, so like an all-mutant island, which they got, and there's a ton of mutants there, and then an evil villain attacked it with sentinels, and they all died.
Okay.
So Genosha is now like an apocalypse kind of city, but there's no one there.
Oh,
like it's in like ruins and stuff, but it there's like no one there. Yeah, it's literally like abandoned.
Yikes.
But Magneto takes Wanda there because he's like, this just getting pretty, like, this is pretty crazy. And he also asks Professor X to come with him to try and like talk sense into Wanda, or at least try and like figure out what's going on with her. So they go to Genosha, and that's like where it starts. Also, mutants at this part in the Marvel continuity, mutants are way more prominent than they are in like the X-Men movies. Like they are getting more and more of the population. Like they have certain cities that are like mutant only cities. I think Brooklyn is like only mutants. They have their own city called M-Town.
M-Town.
I'm sure that'll come up at another point, but yeah.
Wow.
So Charles Xavier gets to Genosha. It starts with this is with him getting to Wanda. This is her giving birth to her kids again. But bear in mind they're already dead at this point. They get killed in Avengers Disassemble because they're not real. And so this is her giving birth to them again. And then Professor X just shows up in his wheelchair and he's like, "Nuh-uh, you got to put them back. They ain't real kids." And then she just like goes skits again.
So he's meant to help.
Yeah.
Right, that's not really helping, is it?
No.
I'm not much of a psychiatrist or anything, but...
So when he gets there, Professor X is like, I can't help. Like, she's way too far gone. And Professor X, in the movies, he's pretty powerful. He's, like, super, super powerful in comics. So the fact that he can't help, he's like, I need to go speak to the Avengers, because if I can't help her, yeah, I'm sure Captain America will be able to do something. You know, that makes sense. So he goes speak to the Avengers to try and decide what they're going to do. The X-Men at this point in time is led by Cyclops and Emma Frost. Do you remember we came across Emma Frost in Old Man Logan?
She's the one that she bones Black Bolt.
Yeah.
Right.
In normal continuity, or I guess just a version of continuity, she bones Cyclops, and because she turns from villain to hero, and then they lead the X-Men together. She's like a super powerful
Emma
psychic.
Frost's in X-Men 2?
She's in...
Because that's where Mystique starts getting angry at Magneto.
No, that's the woman with like the ponytail.
That's the blonde hair, isn't it? I thought it was Emma Frost.
No, she's in I think she's in First Class. And I think she's in X-Men Origins. She can turn her skin into like diamonds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
She can do that as well as being a psychic.
I think I remember in First Class, actually, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably it. So they're now leaders of the X-Men. The Avengers is a slightly different team because of Avengers Disassembled. They formed the New Avengers, which is, I mean, it's pretty much like if you flick the page, you'll see the like shot of them. It's kind of the same team, but there's a few new people in there. Like Luke Cage is now a member. Wolverine's now a member. Just a couple little differences here and there. That's kind of it. So they all have this big chat about what they're going to do about Wanda. And the Avengers are like, let's go. Well, like we've got to try and talk sense into her, because the Avengers in like comics are always like super like over the top optimistic. So they have no plan. Wanda could kill them all if she just gets angry, but they're like, let's just go chat to her. You know, that'll be a good idea. Whilst the X-Men, like Logan is in on this as well, is like, we need to kill her, because if you guys go and try and talk to her and it goes wrong, we're all dead. Like, there's no coming back. There's no plan B if it goes wrong. So we just need to kill her. That should be the number one plan. So yeah, and then there's the stuff about her giving birth to the kids again, because she's not allowed fake kids.
Why not? I guess it doesn't really help things, does it?
It's kind of like the principle of like, well, first of all, she can do that and we don't stop her. How out of hand is it going to get? But also, like, it's kind of like butterfly effect in the way that if she creates her own children, those children are now humans that live on Earth that aren't like born, because they're not born. She just creates them, and so it's like, well, then like, you know, how far is that line getting pushed? Kind of thing. It's just unnatural. So they're against it. Quicksilver, her brother, in comics is like super overprotective of Wanda. I've got in my notes that Quicksilver is like Neymar, which is a reference most people won't understand. But legitimately in comics, there's like, but you're kind of like, are they sleeping together? It's like very close. It's in most of the time, it's just Quicksilver is a bit weird, but then sometimes it gets taken over that. But so because he's super fast, he goes to watch the Avengers. Because he's super fast, they can't see him.
Okay.
You know? And he hears them say about killing Wanda, and like instantly he like freaks out. So he goes back to Genosha and tells Magneto. And Magneto is like, I don't have a better plan. So like, maybe they should. Like, she could kill all of us in an instant. So like, maybe that is the best solution. And he's kind of like not wrong. Like for once, Magneto is like talking sense, where he's like, like this is beyond my control. I can't do anything here. So the Avengers and the X-Men all get together, and they go to Genosha to try and find Wanda. And not even good old Chucky Xavier. He can't even find her. Like they get there and she's not there. And obviously Charles Xavier can usually find people with his mind like super fast, but he can't find her. And then I'm pretty sure it's Spider-Man. It kind of goes off round like to investigate. He's just kind of like, I think he thinks he hears something or whatever. And he goes around a corner, and as soon as he does, the world just goes white. Like there's like a blink kind of thing. So when they all reawaken, it's clear that they're living in like a slightly different world that's been changed a little bit. And it quickly becomes clear that in this world, Magneto basically saved the world from Sentinels. And so now he is like king of the world.
Okay.
Hence the name House of M, which you'd probably think initially House of Mutants, and then when I tell you that, you would think House of it's not even House of Magneto, it's House of Magnus, because he goes by the name Magnus.
I mean, it's cooler than Magneto.
Well, he's still... So he is called Magneto. But...
Magneto Magnus?
I assume this is what... Because his name is still... Like, in the movies, his name is still Eric. Like, that's his birth name. But he goes by the name Magnus. I think it's because when he escaped Germany, he, like, changed his name.
Okay.
So he goes by the name Magnus. So it's the House of Magnus. People start waking up that were there when that like white blink went off, and everyone has got their like dream world. So for example, Spider-Man, when he wakes up, is married to Gwen Stacy and he's got kids, and Uncle Ben is alive and like doing fine. Cyclops is married to Emma Frost and just like living happily. Another example is Miss Marvel, who for a long time in comics was just like given nothing to do, and in this universe she's like Superman, you know, she's like on every billboard and like she's like America's #1 hero. So it's like everyone's kind of got their hidden dream of what they actually want out of their life. It seems like everyone has got it, but it's only the mutants. The reason that Spider-Man has got his, because Spider-Man isn't a mutant, is because he lied and told people that he was a mutant. Because in this world, because obviously Magneto is now ruler of the world, it's like mutants are now the dominant race and humans are now like second citizenship kind of thing. And so mutants run like everything in this world. Also in this world, Hawkeye is alive again. He's leading like a human resistance force against the mutants. I think Luke Cage is in it as well, some other people. Wolverine waking up is a big part of it, because he wakes up and he is now like Nick Fury, like he runs S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of thing, but obviously it's like mutant S.H.I.E.L.D. But also with people being granted their like one true wish, Wolverine's one true wish was that he would remember his past. Because, you know, like Wolverine in movies can't remember what happened to him and the experiments and stuff like that. So that means he remembers what happened before the white blur went off. He remembers Wanda going crazy and that like things suddenly just changed and he woke up on this weird world. So it quickly kind of becomes clear that, like I said, it's only the mutants that have got their wish, and the rest of the people are kind of just like not. They don't seem to be there or whatever. Like I said about Spider-Man lying, he's like the only example, but that's because he lied about being a mutant and that's where he got his powers from. Then we get introduced to this new character. This new character, called Layla Miller, is... You know, in Doctor Strange 2, there's the girl, I think, is it America Chavez? I can't remember.
Yeah.
But she can like travel between the multiverses, and so that Wanda wants her. It's kind of a similar thing. I think they did it a lot better in the movies. This character Layla Miller is like the Eagles in Lord of the Rings. Like she is written into the story because it quickly became apparent, like, okay, how do we rectify this though? Like, this was a cool idea, but how do we get them out? So Layla Miller is a mutant that helps Brian Michael Bendis get out of this corner because her power is she can make people remember.
Come on, man.
Another thing to note is no one knows where Charles Xavier is. Like, Wolverine's trying to find him. Like, obviously he wakes up and he's like, I need to find Xavier. Like, that's his first thing. Later on in Brian Michael Bendis' run, he kind of alluded to the fact that Wanda created Layla Miller as like a subconscious, kind of because she felt bad and she almost wanted to give them like a little bit of hope that eventually they would undo it. Which, you know,
I don't think that helps.
It kind of sounds to me like people criticised your idea, and then you're like, no, the character actually meant it. You know, I don't know, but Layla Miller and Logan team up because he finds her, and they just go on like a fun little trip of touching people, and then when they wake up, from this thing, when she touches them and makes them remember, they're like livid, right? Because they've been living their dream, but now in an instant they're realizing it's not real, and they're remembering their actual life, because this isn't like a dream. This isn't like an illusion or anything. Everything that is in this universe isn't an alternate reality. Wanda has changed the world. So, like Spider-Man, you spend quite a bit of time with Spider-Man because he finds it really difficult once he remembers. Because you've got to think, not only has Wanda created a child for him to have, because he didn't actually have a child with Gwen Stacy, that's been created for this world, so that when he wakes up, he's like, I have a kid now. But also, she's brought Uncle Ben back to life, and Gwen Stacy, because Gwen Stacy dies in comics, like in the movie. So, like, she's changed everything. So, like, when he wakes up, he's like, when he finally realizes what's going on, he's like, well, I've got a kid with Gwen Stacy and Uncle Ben's still alive, but now I remember my actual world where both of them are dead and I'm with Mary Jane instead. And he's like, I know I have to go back to that world because that's the real world. This is all just fake. But, like, obviously that's tough because, like, now he's like, well, I can see that I live this world as well. Because that's the weird thing, is it seems like it's an alternate reality, but it's not. Wanda literally just changed the world. Which is why it's like, this is a big event. Because this isn't some, like, what if or anything. This, like, she changed
Wanda
it.
created all this.
She did it all, right? Yeah, so the Layla Miller stuff is really dumb. It's kind of, so I was talking about how it's like Old Man Logan, where they take things like WandaVision, you know, where she created the town and like brainwashed everyone in it, and so like the people outside of it were fine, but as soon as you enter that bubble, it's like that, but in the comic she does it to the whole world. So, but WandaVision did such good job of like turning that into a small little thing that like had like.
Well, with WandaVision, it was just to be like, she's never exuberated her powers so much.
Yeah.
So this is the biggest it's got so far.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously, in the comic book, she must have actually managed to push it a little bit further than this before.
Yeah.
And now she's been able to do this, which isn't a surprise to many people.
No. Scarlet Witch is like basically a god in comics at this point. Like, she's probably the most powerful. I was gonna say human, but mutant. Human or mutant, I guess. So after Wolverine wakes a bunch of them up, they're like, okay, we're gonna do a big assault on Magneto's big fancy, like, I can't remember if it's a castle or just a really big house or whatever it is, wherever he is. Because he's like, well, he must know where Xavier is and also where Scarlet Witch is. So they all go, literally all of them that they can find. They don't take Cap because obviously Captain America's dream, like at the end of Endgame, is just to grow old. That's all he ever wanted. And so like they find him, but he's just an old man. And they're like, well, we could tap you and then he'll remember his whole past, but he's not going to be any use. So they're just like, we'll just let him be old. So they just leave him, which is fair enough, but also like quite nice, I guess. I don't know whether they like that is like referenced in Endgame where they just leave him to be old. But like, yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, they leave him behind.
No, I don't think I will.
So they attack the House of M. Doctor Strange and Silver Surfer are kind of like, right, you guys go fight him, we'll try and go and find Wanda and Charles Xavier. They kind of allude to the fact that Charles Xavier's dead, that you see a coffin with his name on, not a coffin, like a gravestone, and it's like at the House of M, so and Magneto seems to be like kind of mourning him. But they eventually fight through Magneto's like forces and all that stuff, and Layla taps Magneto, because obviously he's bought into it as well. And he's like the most angry out of anyone. Because he's like, this is all fake. And when he gets woken up, he reveals that it wasn't him. This wasn't his idea. But it was actually Quicksilver who came up with this plan. Because he went to tell Wanda that the X-Men were going to kill her, and that she would die, and she's like, yeah, I probably should, because I can't control any of this, but I don't want to die. I want a family and all of that stuff. And he's like, well, what you should do is give everyone what they want, and then they'll leave you alone, and then they'll thank you for it. And she's like, well, I can't do that, I'm not powerful enough. And he's like, why don't you take over Charles Xavier's mind, and then like use him as like a booster, and then you can mind control everyone at once.
Yikes.
So Quicksilver really goes off the rails. So they finally find out that's what it is. Magneto is livid with Quicksilver and like bonks him with some rocks. He doesn't move out the way because he's an idiot. That's kind of it. Doctor Strange, who in the world where he has his dream is just a psychiatrist. He's finally getting through to Wanda and talking some sense into her, and then Hawkeye shows up and hits her with an arrow because he's like, hey, you killed me, and she's like, but I brought you back, like, come on, man. And then she deletes the arrow and deletes him.
Oh.
So she's like, well, I brought you back, like, I didn't have to do that. So she's just like, well, you can go away again.
Oh yeah, there it is there.
Yeah, she just literally, like Infinity War, she just turns him into dust.
Just absolutely Lego mans him.
Yeah. Wanda also undoes Quicksilver getting bonked by rocks.
That's nice, I guess.
Yeah. And Quicksilver goes off on Magneto because they have a really... it's like either an interesting dynamic or a boring one, I guess, depending on where you lie with it. But their whole thing of like Magneto being a bad dad is like a big part of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver's deal. So they're like, why aren't you happy? Like, you got your wish. And Wanda's like, yeah, childhood sucked, Dad. Like, come on, man. And Wanda's final point, which I think is like the only good thing to come of their whole like father-daughter dynamic, is that she said, I gave you your deepest desire, and it was to be ruler of the entire world instead of to have a family with us. Which obviously, like, that's her thing, is she just wants a family. So Wanda goes completely off the edge, and she's like, well, if your dream is to have nothing but mutants, and she says no more mutants, and then the world goes white again. Luckily, all of the psychic people in the Avengers and X-Men created a little bubble around themselves, so they're all good. And the world goes back to the original way it was before this whole thing happened. But it kind of slowly becomes clear that all of the mutants, apart from the ones who were in that little bubble, no longer have powers. Like, their mutant gene is gone. Apart from, like I said, the ones that were in the little psychic bubble, and there's a few others around the planet, kind of thing. Which is a huge... why this event is so big. Because, I mean, I say that. In terms of notable X-Men that lose their powers, Magneto no longer has powers. Quicksilver no longer has powers. Iceman no longer has powers.
What is Iceman without ice?
What?
Because, like, he is just...
What do you mean?
He's literal ice. So without
No, he can just like turn himself into ice.
Oh, right.
I assume it's to do with his body being like mostly water, and then he can turn that into ice. That would be my guess. Because he can manipulate water.
Now he's just bloated a lot.
Yeah, I guess so.
Feels bad.
Yeah, so it's like, it sounds like a really big deal, mutants losing their powers, but like I said, it's only really like those three big characters that lose them. It's essentially a way for, like I said at the start, how mutants in this version of Marvel are becoming a lot more prominent. It's basically a way for the writers to go, let's just decrease like the mutant population by a ton without like genociding them all, so that we can carry on with our whole X-Men stories of like mutants being like up against it. Like the movies, they're always like second-class citizens and they're looked down upon.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a way to clean slate X-Men up to this point, so that you can return to that initial dynamic of mutants being a small part of the population instead of quite a big part of it like they were becoming. So the story kind of ends with, they go back to the Avengers Tower, they see Hawkeye's costume is on the wall, so Wanda brought him back, but he's left his costume there as if to be like, I'm back, but I don't want to be an Avenger anymore. Like, this has been crazy. I got brought back to life, then I was erased again. Like, I'm done. And everyone who was in that psychic bubble, including Wolverine, remembers the whole thing because they didn't get their minds wiped in that second blink where she got rid of all the mutants. And they don't know where Wanda is. She just is seemingly gone. So like I said, it's essentially a long way of making less mutants. It does have big implications for like some of the characters. Like I said, like Wolverine now remembers his whole past, which like up until now he hasn't, and he's always been hunting to try and find out his kind of life story. So that it's a big deal for Wolverine in particular. But that's how House of M ends. It ends with less mutants than when we started.
Wow.
You will find that most events end like that, with the Avengers going back to Avengers Tower and being like, oh wowee, what a day, hey boys. Like, I feel like so many things end like that in comics, like where they're just like, oh, that was a close one, boys. Also, it really annoys me when there's an event and there's no consequences at the end. It's like an event, but then it gets neatly wrapped up with like everything's the same. There are some things that happen because of this with like the mutant stuff.
I mean, there's no Magneto anymore.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he gets his Quicksilver gets his pals back real fast. I'm pretty sure Magneto does as well.
Nice, real fast.
I didn't even
Does Iceman get his powers back?
I assume so.
Why?
Pretty soon.
At least like make one permanent. Iceman, I don't think anyone cares about Iceman, unless in the comics he's cool.
So there's a thing where when Emma Frost is an evil mutant, she like gets into Iceman's mind and is like, you do realise that you suck at being Iceman, and that I could show you how to do all of this stuff. And he's like, well, what do you mean? I can skate across water. And she's like, you could like freeze the water inside of someone's body and like instantly kill them from the outside, or you could freeze the water in the air. And he's like, man, I really suck at being Iceman. That's the only notable thing I can think that Iceman like ever does. But
he does suck.
Yeah, a lot of the X-Men suck.
Oh yeah, but you do have cool guys, I guess. But
yeah.
So that the whole point in it is Wanda goes so crazy, but then she's still not crazy enough to kill them all.
No, she doesn't. Yeah, she doesn't necessarily. She doesn't like. I don't think she means to kill any of them in Avengers Disassembled either. It's she can't control her powers.
She's just crazy enough to mildly annoy them.
Yeah, and she's insanely protective over her kids. So when they try and get them, because she can't control her powers, they're like tied to her emotions. So she freaks out, and then her powers go crazy.
So the end of this, is that just similar to? No, I wouldn't even. I guess similar to the end of WandaVision, where she's still kooky, but she's calmed it down a bit. But she
Yeah.
doesn't want anything to do with anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of the direction they take her in after this, where she just goes away for ages and she's like, she kind of calms down a little bit, but still she's like, I don't want anything to do with
So I mean,
any of you.
even in Doctor Strange 2, Doctor Strange is the only one who knows where Wanda is.
Mm.
So it could be the same thing where she's then gone. That's it. She's done. Donezo. I'm done with you lot.
Yeah.
Why? So Charles Xavier is dead.
I don't.
Because he doesn't come back when she flips it back.
Yeah. I don't think he is.
But he got used as a brain box.
I don't think he ever died.
But he was used as a booster.
Yeah.
Can't imagine.
I don't think he died.
Well, he's just all right after that. I mean, sorry, this is the problem which I've noticed with comics is that you have to be okay with quite a lot.
Yeah.
But I like how the movies and series have started putting things in bits where it's like, this doesn't make sense, but we're going to try and portray it in a way that it'll make a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, it don't make sense. How can you be used as a booster, but you'll be alright still, I guess?
Well,
long nap? Be alright after that?
yeah. They're like the Odin sleep.
Yeah, easy. The Xavier sleep.
Well, I don't think that would be enough to like kill him or anything like that. Like, she's only using his brain because he's connected to mutants. Like, he can find, like, you know, like how he uses Cerebro to like find mutants and stuff like that. Like, his brain is so powerful in terms of being like an insanely powerful psychic. So I think she only uses it. She can make people. She can do like the WandaVision thing. Let's say like she could do the WandaVision thing, but she can't do it on a big enough scale to like cover the whole world. So she uses the fact that Professor X is such a strong psychic to like amplify it, kind of thing. So I don't. You never see him dead, so I don't think he's dead.
I guess you don't see him dead. You don't see him back alive. It's just like
you don't see him back alive either, which is weird. But I don't know. I don't know what X-Men story followed House of M, but I can't imagine he would be dead.
No, you can't kill off like your biggest, second biggest X-Men after Wolverine.
Yeah, so I really like the stuff that they chose to take from House of M. I thought they would do more House of M, but I also thought that we would get more. I didn't think that the Scarlet Witch kind of like culmination would be Doctor Strange 2. I thought that we were going to get like an Avengers movie of Scarlet Witch being the big villain, but it seems like we're not. I mean, they could just. I mean, they've already announced the slate, but I suppose at the end of Doctor Strange 2, they could just be like, House of M is happening as well. But I feel like they already did it. So like, when they first did WandaVision, I thought they were building to House of M, and then they didn't, obviously.
Yeah, with the amount of like now mutants, heroes that are dead or have been replaced.
Yeah,
I don't think House of M's happening.
Yeah,
I think that as you said, they've just taken. Don't get me wrong, good bits.
Yeah,
but yeah, it just ain't happening, is it?
I also feel like Scarlet Witch is so much of a better character in the MCU than she is in comics. Like, in comics, she's cool because she's insanely powerful, but the way that they did WandaVision, where you, like, actually feel for her, is so much better than they do it in the comics, where you're just like, she wants kids with a robot, she can't have them. Now she's crazy.
I mean, yeah.
Like, so if they had tried to do House of M, I feel like maybe that would have got a little bit lost. Like doing it as a TV show with WandaVision and like building it slowly was such a good way to do it.
I think just Marvel's. Again, this is where DC and Marvel's completely different. I feel DC are trying to go from comic book to comic book. They're trying to go as comic book focused as possible. Where it looks like all the Marvel stuff, they're picking and choosing. They're doing what they do with other comic book writers, where they'll just pick and choose, but it works because of yes, they could do a whole House of M stuff. But if they made House of M, would it be as impactful as WandaVision was?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it'd be like,
It's like when we get round to doing stuff that they've already done. Like when we do, like Civil War is a great example of how the Civil War comic is pretty good, but when you see what they changed for the way they did it, you're like, you can't be annoyed that they didn't copy the comic book because it wouldn't have worked with like the movies. Like they set up Civil War so perfectly for what they did. You couldn't just like jam the comic book into that gap and expect it all to work.
I mean, even in Civil War as well, you knew where they were going to go afterwards.
Yeah.
So, for example, they pushed Spider-Man into it. 'Cause Spider-Man wasn't in it before.
Yeah.
So they went, oh, we need to do future Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
Just chuck him in Civil War. Everyone loves Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And just things like that where you're like, ah.
Yeah. We'll do more Brian Michael Bendis for sure because he wrote a lot of big Marvel stuff. He basically like, you know how the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies kind of like rejuvenated Spider-Man and stuff like that. He did that for comics. His comic version of Spider-Man is very Tom Holland, and he kind of like made people fall in love with Spider-Man again by bringing it like back to what it should originally be.
More jokey.
More jokey, he's at school, like all of that kind of stuff.
He actually acts as like a college kid.
Yeah.
Instead of...
He wrote Avengers Disassembled, which obviously came before this, which we'll do. He wrote Secret Invasion, which is a Disney Plus series really, really soon. So we'll do that probably around the same time as that series. I think the Spider-Man stuff is all like brilliant. Not the biggest fan of the event stuff because it's very like, you don't get a lot of character stuff in there, as in like, you know how, again, this relates to like movies versus the comics, you know how like every Marvel character that we have in a movie, when they're in a scene together, they're so distinctive and like they're such different personalities, whereas in a comic obviously you don't get like the performance aspect of it, of course, but you only get what they're saying through the text. But it's very like, there's not a lot of personality. It's quite like, I don't know, it feels more like an event where you've got like action figures all, you know, you've chucked them all into one thing instead of like a little story where like you get like all these little cool character moments, like in the Avengers movies where you'll have like a group and you get like them all bouncing off each other and you're like, that's weird, I never would have. Like the scene that jumps into my head is when, I think it's Infinity War, when you get the scene between Spider-Man and Doctor Strange for the first time, and Spider-Man's like, oh, we're using our fake names or whatever he says, and he's like, well then I'm Spider-Man. You know, you're like, well, that's cool that we get those two characters getting to have a little one-on-one conversation for the first time. It's like you take that out, and the comic is more like the big battle in Endgame where you're just like, chuck it all in and let's see what happens, you know? Like, I don't know, I'm just not a big fan of his writing style, and I think that comes across in House of M. You don't really get a lot of like cool character stuff. Like, even the one bit of character stuff I like is the Spider-Man stuff where he like wakes up and he's like, well, like, I've got everything I wanted. Like, I've got a kid with Gwen Stacy and Uncle Ben's still alive, but he's like, I know I need to go back to the other one because this isn't real. Even that is kind of like skimmed over. It's kind of like, he's really struggling with this anyway, you know?
Yeah, as just looking through it, it seems like everyone has the similar thing. Obviously not Cyclops because he's blind and he's an idiot. But where Beast is like, obviously, he just wants to be an absolute genius, which he is anyway. So in here, he's like a top scientist. He's human.
Yeah, he's like accepted as just a really smart person.
And then he's even... I read a thing where he was like, something don't feel right. And it's just like...
Yeah.
It seemed like he was just going through it all, where if you could just make certain... You could probably make a couple books on that universe.
Yeah.
But if it's an event... If that's how most Marvel events go... That's quite disappointing.
So,
like,
I can show you what I mean by the spin-offs. I'll pull this up whilst we're chatting about other stuff. Yeah, one thing about Cyclops, right, which I kind of rate, his one wish was that his dream was that he's just permanently with Emma Frost, who like I don't know how long he's been with in at this point in comics like continuity. X-Men gets very like soap drama at points. It's just like,
I mean, yeah. Have you not watched the films?
yeah, but like I love that that's his like one wish. He's like, I just want to be with Emma Frost because she's really hot. He's not like, I wish I could not shoot lasers out of my eyes every time I open them.
I mean, to be fair, I don't know if you see it in that, but his glasses change as well.
Oh,
So he looks a bit like Riddick, but they're red instead of black. And you're like, you know what? I respect that. As much as I hate Cyclops, a Riddick-looking Cyclops, I'm for.
yeah. So what you were saying about how like there could be like individual stories. When I said about when we were talking about event comics, so this is the full collection of House of M. So you've got the main issues that we've just been through, but then these are the spin-offs. So there's a Fantastic Four House of M issue, a Spider-Man one, an Iron Man one. Like, so these are all like, these will tell the story. So like you can see how they're like sandwiched in between the big event ones. So it's kind of like filling in gaps.
Uncanny X-Men.
Yeah, so it's just like
Utopia.
Cable and Deadpool one, a couple of Hulk ones. Like, so like this is how many. So like House of M is 8 issues. And that's how long the actual event goes on for.
Oh my dear lord. And there's just a decimation thing at the end. Which,
yeah.
Wow.
But again, what my thing has always been with spin-off ones, if it's not needed in the full thing, then I'm not too interested. And also it's always a different writer team, and so it gets confusing as like, well, it's not the same kind of thing. It's like a weird disconnect, which I've never. Yeah, I don't know. It just feels unnecessary.
I feel there must be some complete event issues which are like, even if they have different ones, apparently.
Yeah.
It's like same like bringing back to Black Mirror from last time. You can see where the tone shifts completely.
Yeah.
But it's still good.
Yeah.
Like, and you can tell it's like 3 different stories.
Yeah.
So I imagine the same with events, but I guess it's very pick and choosy than what you do.
Yeah.
But yeah. My only negative of House of M is, and it sounds hard, nothing really happened. You went from a world where there aren't many mutants, and then she goes, have your wish, because I'm going, woo!
Yeah.
And then everyone's mutant, and then they're like, oh, let's bring this character in which just helps everyone remember. That's annoying.
Yeah.
That is definitely America Chavez.
Yeah.
Oh, let me just fix this with portals. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, cool. Yeah, whatever. And then the end is just the start. But you don't know where Scarlet Witch is now. Why couldn't she have just disappeared?
And there's less
because
mutants.
of Professor X.
Mm.
He's got bigger. Is it Professor X? I always get him confused with Dr. X from Action Man.
What?
I always, because I always had a Dr. X and an Action Man, and then I started watching X-Men, so I knew Action Man before I knew X-Men.
Wow, I'd never even considered that possibility.
Yeah, so Dr. X is, I mean, now I realise it now, he just looks a bit like Kano from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, true.
That's mad.
Crazy.
Probably just had that before.
Tease for the next episode. We're going back to DC. We're gonna do another like fun alternate reality look one where it's like DC's version of a what if, where it's very. I think it might be. Old Man Logan is really really good, but it might be my favorite of all of them, of all of the kind of like what if kind of ones.
Martian Manhunter?
No. Where it's like everyone knows this one comic book story, but what if this one little thing changed and then that changed everything about it? And the only tease I can give you is that if when we're doing the episode, instead of calling you mate, I'm going to call you comrade. And that's it.
I don't know DC heroes enough. That's that's absolutely nothing.
Well,
The only thing I thought is, as soon as you go, what if? What if Batman's parents didn't get shot? Would he be Batman? I can't imagine so. I think he'd just be a spoiled rich kid, right?
It depends who's writing Batman, because if it's like Grant Morrison, then it's like destined, and then
Grant Morrison's the
he's the
magician.
guy that looks like a magician, yeah. And then sometimes I feel like most writers would say no, he's not Batman. Some would say there are some versions where Thomas Wayne was also his dad was also a Batman.
That's like going from my Alfred thing from last time as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Didn't think that'd come full circle.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, it depends,
That's House of M.
Done. First big event.